Hello, hello. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Wolf Summit. We have been kindly asked by the Wolf Summit to curate and host a stage for them today. It's called the Scaleup stage. We're incredibly delighted to be invited for that. My name is Robin Wouters. I'm the founding editor of Tech.eu, and we are a European technology news and market intelligence company, basically providing market intelligence data, research, insights, curating events, doing EU projects, and all sorts of things. So we're super happy to be invited because on a personal level, I've been quite mindful of the fact that the CE region has been producing lots of disruptive, innovative companies over the last few years. And I've been very, very mindful of the fact that we're probably going to see a lot more in the coming years. So very, very delighted to be here to curate and host this stage. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you've been spending a lot of time in front of your screens in the last year. So we really appreciate that you're taking the time to follow the stage along with us. So we have a number of really good fireside chats lined up, some of them pre-recorded, some of them live. We have a number of panels with investors, with media representatives, and promising startups from the region. So we're super psyched for this. You can find the schedule on our website, but also on Wolf Summit website and Hopin. So feel free to stick around with us for the next 4 hours, but I'm sure everything is being recorded, so you can also watch on demand afterwards. I promised to give a little bit of a recap of the presentation I just finished about an hour ago on the main stage at Wolf Summit. What we basically did is we did research on scale-ups in CE region. And whenever you do that, you sort of have to define what is a scale-up. In this research, that means any company that has raised more than 15 million euros to date. What do we mean by CE? We are quite well aware that there is different definitions depending on who you ask. But for us, CE region is quite broad. So we looked at a broad spectrum of countries from Central and Eastern European region to do our research. I'm going to give you some baseline numbers. I'm not sharing the presentation, but you can see that afterwards. But just to put into context the conversations that we are going to have for the next 4 hours, this is what innovation looks like and the innovation ecosystem in CE looks like today. So when you look at the amount of companies that have raised over 15 million euros in CE in the last few years since we started doing our research, that number is 84. So it's 84 companies that we've identified. They are from all over the place. You know some of these names, I'm sure. TransferWise in Estonia, UiPath in Romania, Rolik in Czech Republic. We have InPost in Poland, Preply in Ukraine, Grammarly as well. So lots of great companies coming from all over the CE region, so not concentrating in one place only. And if you look at the amount of funding, then the top 5 is actually Poland, Estonia, Czech Republic, Lithuania, and the Ukraine. So those are the 5 countries where most of the scale-up funding is going to. As I said, you will recognize some of the names, and we actually got some of them to also join us on stage here in the next 4 hours. So we're quite pleased with that. From those 84 scale-ups in the CE region, we know that they've raised more than 13 billion euros to date. So 13 billion euros is nothing to sneeze at, but of course, it pales in comparison to the amount of funding that's going to European tech companies in general. Just for comparison's sake, about 43 billion euros went to European tech companies in general just last year alone, according to PitchBook. So the CE still has some way to catch up, but there's also quite a promising pipeline of startups coming out of the region that I'm sure will bring that number up and maybe on par with the total amount of funding in the years to come. So when you look at that 13 billion euros, it's interesting to note that 8 billion euros of that 13 billion euros was raised by only 5 companies. And of that 8 billion euros in funding raised, 5 billion euros, well, a little more than 5 billion euros was actually raised by 2 companies only. So that's quite fitting for this conference, of course. Those are 2 Polish companies, InPost and Allegro. They raised that capital through IPOs in 2020 and 2021, respectively. So these are the companies that are sort of, providing the tailwinds for the rest of the CE region. When you look at the number of $15 million plus rounds, we counted about 10 of those in 2019, about 14 of those in 2020. But in the first quarter of 2021, which bear in mind, this quarter is actually not over yet. We've already counted 10. So that's on par with the number of 50 million euro rounds that we saw for the total of 2019. So rest assured that this year is actually going to be a record year when it comes to scale-up funding in the CEE. We'll, of course, be watching very closely at TechEU, reporting on the rounds, but also providing an update on these numbers, hopefully at the next Wolf Summit, or even the Wolf Summit next year when we have the total number for 2021. As I said, there is a major pipeline of startups coming from the region. We have also a major activity that we're spotting in investors. So, of course, there is regional and national investors looking at innovation locally, but there's also a number of investment firms clearly crossing the borders, investing from Ukraine to Estonia and the other way around, going from Poland to places like Ukraine, even Moldova, to invest in companies. And on top of that, there are also quite a large number of international investors, whether they're from the rest of Europe, from the US, from Southeast Asia, looking at Europe quite intensively and not forgetting that there's also innovation happening in the CEE region. Which brings us a bit to the problem, because there's a lot of positivity, a lot of optimism in the numbers, but there's also a bit of a problem, which is a problem that is not specific to the CEE region in particular. This also goes for other places in the world, including the US. But we know the numbers in Europe are quite bad when it comes to diversity. Diversity, of course, can mean anything from socioeconomic backgrounds, racial, but also gender. And gender is the topic of research that we've actually also presented, that was released yesterday by our friends at Experior Venture Fund and Unconventional Ventures. They've done some research on what the gender situation looks like in the CEE, and the numbers are quite depressing. So just to give you an idea, in 2020 alone, we saw that 1% of funding went to female-founded teams only. So where all of the founders of a company are women, only 1% of the investment goes to them. When you look at mixed gender teams, that number rises a little bit to 5%, but it's still abysmally low. So that's quite a depressing statistic any way you look at it. But very important to know that if you do that kind of research, you also see the trend over time. The numbers are not just stagnating, they're actually going backwards. So that goes for both for the EU, but those numbers are a little bit better. I think we're 2.2% and 8% respectively when it comes to female-founded and mixed gender. But in the CE region, that number is even lower. So there's quite a lot of work to be done on that front. I'll give you one final statistic just to close this, and then we can get started with the sessions. But women founded teams only actually outperform men. So per euro raised, you get more for your more bang for your buck, and actually the productivity that women founded teams do compared to men is actually 96% in terms of outperformance. So if I was an investor, I said this in my presentation earlier on the main stage as well, but if I was an investor looking at the CE region, I would very much know where to put my money, or at least try to find opportunities in that sense. So that's all I have for you today. Again, the presentation on the main stage will be shared on demand with anyone who's registered, and I can also share the slides that I used later on. But now let's go to the actual sessions of the Scaleup stage. And I'm very, very happy to introduce my colleague, Andrew Degeler, who will be taking care of the first live fireside chat. Andrew, welcome to the stage. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Robin. I'm great. How are you doing?
And what do you have lined up for us first?
So the first event of the stage is our fireside chat with Damir Sabol, co-founder and CEO of Photomath, also founder of Microblink and more companies. And this is something that we are going to talk about during this session. So is it time to start now? Shall we?
I think we can. Mike can invite Damir up on stage, and I'll leave.
Perfect. Okay, Robin has just left mid-sentence, but Damir, good morning, and thanks a lot for joining the panel today.
Thank you. Happy to join the panel and talk about our experience.
Right. And the experience you do have, I guess, I have read a bunch of stories about you and the companies that you founded. It's really impressive. So congratulations of all the successes that you've seen. And I'm very much looking forward to maybe getting some lessons that you've learned out of you during this conversation. But before, so I feel that we are in a bit of a sort of unlevel playing field, myself and the audience, because I know a lot about you already just because I was preparing for this conversation, but I'm afraid not everyone does. So if you could quickly sort of recap in a couple of minutes about your background, what you've been doing over the past 20 years, and where are you right now in terms of your entrepreneurial journey?
So yeah, thank you. I'm based in Zagreb, Croatia. And this is where I built actually all more or less all my companies. First started with internet service provider called Iskon. So built one like first private internet service provider in Croatia. We got venture capital investments, one of the first venture capital investments. This was happening in 99 and 2000. And then we sold the company to Croatian Telecom, which is part of Deutsche Telekom. T-Com group. I left after we sold. I was there for a year. Corporate environment wasn't the best thing for me, or best fit. So I left. Then I started another company. I took like a year off and then started another company. Another company was actually doing a bill presentment and payment. So you receive your utility bills into your internet banking. And it was actually too early for that. It was too early, and it wasn't really a good product market fit. It's still company still alive. I sold it to another company who is dealing with that, actually developing this further. But it wasn't a great success because, as I said, it wasn't good product market fit. It wasn't, and it was too early. Mm-hmm. But through that, we learned that actually the next company that I built was based on this experience, actually. Based on experience that we were solving problem in a different way of paying utility bills. And then iPhone was coming, camera on mobile phones. And then I thought, oh, maybe we can actually solve this problem not by working with banks directly, not by working with big utility companies, which was also a problem for in our approach. Maybe we can actually solve our problem by solving this problem for a customer, consumer, mm-hmm. directly on their mobile phone. So we created technology that can scan utility bills and extract payment data for simple payment. This was first called PhotoPay, and later it turned into Microblink. So Microblink was first doing bill payment using mobile phone camera, which is technology that we developed. So to extract data from utility bills to simplify payments. And it is very popular in Croatia, some other countries, mm-hmm. Austria, some banks in Germany use it. So it was quite actually popular and good solution. But Microblink later continued developing this technology, and today Microblink is building technology to extract data from identification documents. Still bill payment, of course, but identification documents is number one area. So it's the same AI technology that is used to simplify, user onboarding and things like that. So like for bank account opening, different services, things like that. So this is Microblink. So data extraction using mobile camera. Then in 2014, I was actually helping my son check homework. So I was checking my son's homework, and it was, like full page of problems that I had to calculate, and I was a bit lazy. And I thought maybe we can use this technology that we are developing, technology to read text using mobile camera, to actually read math problems and solve math problems, to be able to check homeworks and then explain math problems, how to solve math problems. So from Microblink, we actually created Photomet. We launched at TechCrunch Disrupt Europe in London 2014, and then it exploded. And in terms of in a good way, in terms of user interest all around the world. And then we continue building it and received several rounds of venture capital investments. And Photomet is now, like, we had more than 220 million downloads of Photomet app. It is one of probably the most popular math app in the world. And homework help app in the world. So, and we continue building it. I am personally focused on Photomet. I'm 100% focused on Photomet now. And Microblink is, I'm not operationally, still a shareholder there, but not operationally anymore. So this is actually the story. Several companies behind me.
But every company that you founded is still around, right? Iskon is still around,
Yes.
even though it's been sold, and Rachuni is still around as well, right?
They are still around. Iskon is still, it's part of Croatian Telecom, but as a separate brand still. Now it's 15 years then it was acquired, but it's still part of the brand. So yeah, and actually successful. I was happy how it developed. But yeah, I left at quite, like when we sold, I left.
Right.
But yes, all the companies are still around.
So you've got these very international companies, especially the two ones that you founded last. And how about yourself? So you're still in Croatia. Do you feel that you belong mostly to the local entrepreneurial and startup ecosystem, or the CEE ecosystem, or the European ecosystem, or just the global ecosystem? Where do you feel yourself?
I would say local and global. Local and global. Local, of course, local. We have big visibility here, really successful, so well known. It is important because of the talent and growth, employee growth that we expect. So we do feel local, and we feel global because we are Photomet is like really global app. US market is number one for us in terms of usage and in terms of revenues also, even more in revenues than in usage, but usage number one. But we are global. Then Russia is there second for us, Philippines, Indonesia, Brazil, Italy, other European countries. So we do feel global, and we have US investors that have global approach actually. So. And I cannot say that we have like European, of course, like we are European, but not as much as like, I don't feel that we are as much as part of European ecosystem, so much as global as ecosystem.
I see. And for the local part, then, how would you characterize the local ecosystem that you belong to? What is it like? What sort of journey of the ecosystem itself has been? How much distance it has covered?
I don't know. I don't feel that it is like local here in Croatia, and or I would say even regional. It's developing better. So funding is more available than it was. So I started in 2000, and it earlier, like 97, 98, 99, it was much more difficult. So it was just much more difficult. Today you can get funding, it's easier. It's never easy, of course. It's never easy, but it is easier. The ecosystem is, but I'm not like really happy how the ecosystem is developing. The thing is that, of course, there are good startups appearing from time to time, but I would like to see more activity. The thing is that in the last 5 years, so engineers or experts, young experts, they can choose. The thing is that there is big, they can choose whether they will start a startup, which is always difficult journey. You don't know if you will succeed or not, or they can choose and take a good job, really good job, and be part of like some bigger story. I would even recommend to gather some experience, but it's a tough choice. So startups are still hard, like always, even if all the founding. So I don't see like big growth that I would like to see, but it's not bad. It's much better than it was, but it's not very. I think there is more potential.
Right, I understand. So we are at Scale Up stage today. So let us try and talk about, well, scaling up in the CE region, scaling up of the CE region, basically towards the world domination, which is, I guess, the final goal, one way or the other. So you've scaled up 4 companies to different degrees of success, to different sizes. So if you look at the first 2 at Iskon and Rachuni, what were the main lessons that you took from there to apply to the second 2, Microblink and Photomath?
Main lessons were that we went global. So
Right.
Iskon and Rachuni were local, and we at Iskon we were actually building software that was more advanced that we actually understood at the time. Yeah, it was like, and this is the difference. We were building local ISP, but I think that we had software and opportunities to build something global, and we didn't understand it. So that is actually what our Silicon Valley counterparts had. They had understanding. They had good mentors. They had investors who could tell them, this is what you are building. This has global potential. You should go global with it. So we built, for example, we had very successful chat service in 2000. It was local. There were thousands of people using it simultaneously. And then we built first social game in 2000. It was part of this chat service. So it was just like very early, but we had we didn't understand this was like big opportunity, global opportunity. And we focused locally. So what we changed is, I said we can obviously build great software or very interesting services. Let's do it globally. That was the big. So let's focus on global market, not on local market. That was one of the biggest learnings there. And Microblink and Photomath are global companies in terms of addressing global market. And that was big change, and it was actually much bigger outcome.
Right. And you already mentioned this, and I wanted just to delve in a tiny little bit more. So you stepped down from an executive and operational role at Microblink just earlier this month, if I'm not mistaken. So what was the thinking behind it? And is it sort of an inevitable part of scaling up a company that you as a founder would at some point have to step down and stop being operationally involved as much as you used to?
I would say, this is like special situation because I had at the same time 2 successful companies. One was Microblink, one was Photomath.
That's a good problem to have.
It is, but it is still a problem. So it's still a headache from time to time. It is a good problem to have. So it's something. So I had to choose. You need to focus. So focus is important. If I just can't do 2 things at the same time. So and then question is, can I do even one thing at this level? If this is global level. So what I am good at personally, I'm good at building new company based on new technology, creating actually great product, like motivating people to do it. But am I the best person to scale the company? And because this is there is big difference in starting a startup and then scaling a startup company, and a big difference between being a good leader and being a good manager. I am a good manager up to 50, 60 people. I'm not really good manager at 100, 150, 200. This is just like totally different job. So I think that, and then I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at, and all these decisions are a result of this. Like, what do I as a shareholder think is the best thing for the company? And I think that bring somebody more experienced might be actually the best thing for the company at certain point.
Right, right. I understand, of course. And so now that you're focused at Photomath, you're scaling this company further. You've already got 220 million app downloads. For the last number I've seen, almost $30 million in funding. What are the challenges then? What are the main challenges that you are facing while scaling Photomath?
So we have offices now in San Mateo, California, so Silicon Valley office and Croatian office. And so scaling the company, scaling workforce, it is a global product. We need to pick, our fights or where we are focusing. And then scaling the company, it's like we had organic growth, so we do see now that we will need to invest more into active growth. It's not only organic. It's nice to have organic growth, but at one point you need to go to active. So this is one challenge. We had challenge of monetization, which it looked like we resolved at this stage very successfully. So we are really satisfied with our monetization performance until now. But of course, we need to scale it. I would say, managing a company and scaling company is the biggest challenge. This is global competition, and it's very demanding. So doing this is, but of course we are addressing it by hiring executives that can help us. This is inevitable. In Croatia, we have great technical people, creative people. We don't have very experienced business people, so we need to bring them from outside or US, Europe. So we are starting to do that, and this will help us to actually address all the challenges that we have just by bringing more experienced people who can help us with that.
Right. And how do you approach this? How do you approach this hiring process? What are you looking for, and what are you looking at where you're talking to people? What's it like from your perspective?
So we are looking for somebody who has seen it. For example, in Croatia, it's difficult to find people who have seen, scale. That's because we are small country. There are no really, you can't get experience. So we are looking for somebody who has seen it, who has seen all the mistakes, who was successful, and bring this experience, experience to us. It is not easy. Especially now in the COVID situation, it's difficult to create a relationship with those people. It's like this very personal thing, hiring hire executives, and through video, it's not ideal. So this is more difficult than it would be, when you can meet those people. But this will be resolved. It is actually, you need to try harder, but it is possible. But it's not easy, of course. Nothing is easy.
Right. So you're looking for this experience first of all, and so are you finding it mostly in the US, or are there also now? Is there also a generation of experienced scale up people in Europe as well? What are you seeing?
Of course, this is a big still question for us. It's like we don't have clear answer on that. It's US is definitely Silicon Valley full of people who know how to scale. Europe is also good.
Right.
It's Europe is now, there are number of companies in Europe, number of really capable people in Europe. So I would say both. Still, probably a slight advantage for US, but Europe is a number of good executives in Europe also. So I would say depends on what kind of executive it is and what kind of relationship it is. Should somebody be in the same time zone, or can it work can be a separate team in another time zone? It is different for different companies.
Right, I understand. So we've got 1 more minute, and I wanted to address one more question that I had to you. So the way I understand the evolution, let's say, of your companies, you first had this technology that was there, the OCR sort of technology that could be used for many different things. And Microblink does have, as far as I understand, a few different products using this technology. But what you have chosen to sort of spin off and scale was Photomath. So as far as I see it, so you have chosen an idea that was, again, in your eyes, scalable, and it turns out that it was true. So like within a minute, how do you spot this great idea that is scalable, and how do you separate the wheat from the chaff in this case?
You just try and see. So Photomath was I built a product that I thought could help me and my kids, and then we launched it, and it actually turned out that there is like huge interest for this. So we tried, we built something. It turned out there is like people are really interested, and we said, okay, let's work on it and see what will happen. But these are years that you need to invest into it. It's not overnight. So you try something. If it is showing a promise, then you spend years on it, and then it can be successful.
Right.
And you choose whatever you think, what you like, what you think is better. That's it.
Right. So look for the first signs of the idea being promising, and then just keep committing to it. Great. This is great. Thank you so much, Damir. So we have been here with Damir Sabol, the co-founder of Microblink and Photomath, and the CEO of Photomath. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks a lot for sharing all your insights. Very happy, and it's been very useful. So good luck with everything you're doing with Photomath and Microblink.
Thank you, Andrei. It was a pleasure.
And for all of our viewers, we are going to stop for about 30 seconds due to the technicalities of the platform. We will be back in half a minute with the continuation of our scale-up stage. Robin is going to be back within a minute. So stay with us for much more good stuff.